So, welcome to today's workshop on fear, isolation, and how the two interconnect. So, for anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Kate Beasley. I'm a trauma informed domestic abuse and risk assessment specialist, behavioural analyst, and trainer. And I'm also the founding director of Say No Das CIC. So, fear, isolation, and how they are connected. When we talk about fear, we think about somebody being afraid. What are things that would cause them to be afraid? We think of weapons being involved. We think of war. We think of really serious physical violence. If those situations occur, fear, if somebody expresses fear, it's fair and reasonable. It's any sound-minded person would understand why somebody might be afraid of in certain circumstances where these things are present. In relationships, if they've got a partner who is physically violent towards them, and there's physical injury being caused, or there's strangulation being as a form of punishment, then if somebody expresses fear, any sound and reasonably minded person would understand why that person would be fearful. But fear doesn't require action, only the belief that something could happen. Now, fear often starts off as a little seed of uncertainty. Now, the best way that I can explain this to you is in a personal example. Very, very early on in my relationship, my ex used to told me a story involving extreme, and I'm talking serious extreme violence, where he was the perpetrating party. It was unprovoked. He told me that it was unprovoked. And the next day, I questioned him on this because when he said all these things, he was under the influence. Now, his response to me was quite shocking to me. I made it up. It's not true. Now, my first instinct was, well, why would anybody make anything like that up? It's why would you? Why? Additionally, the person that he had described was not the person that I was seeing at that point in time. At that point in my relationship, I had not seen that aggressive side of him. So yes, I thought, well, that's a bit strange and, a bit concerning, to be fair, a little bit concerning, that you would make something like that up. But because that wasn't the person that I was seeing, I brushed it under the carpet. But even though I dismissed it, the seed of uncertainty was planted. Over the duration of the relationship, he watered that seed. Now, on top of every punch of the wall, watered that seed, every piercing glare, every clench of the fist, every clench of the jaw, every time he would get right up close to me to intimidate me, all watered that seed. But additionally, he continued to tell me stories and fabricate incidences that involved him being the perpetrating party who was physically aggressive towards another person, unprovoked every time, where he has left that other person in a critical condition and potentially life-threatening condition. None of these incidents ever happened. That's not the point. The point of these stories were to plant the seed of uncertainty and reinforce that seed of uncertainty. That he was dangerous and not somebody to be messed with. Mess with me. I'm showing you, I'm telling you I'm unpredictable. I am telling you what I'm capable of doing. The look carried a stronger message to me than anything he ever said to me. And bearing in mind, he directly threatened to unalive me on more than one occasion. But the look carried a strong enough message than the words, I will kill you, or I will fuck you up, or I will do this if you don't do that. The look carried a strong enough message, much stronger message, and he knew that. Sometimes if I was challenging in him, I'm not one, I've never have been one to accept unfairness. I regularly put myself in danger, increased my own risk because I would challenge him because I felt something was wrong and unfair. But the moment he issued a warning, be careful, Hannibal Lecter will come out. And there'd be a slight shift in the look. A slight darkness that would come over the eyes. If I didn't step into line then, a look would get more intensified. There'd be a clenching of the fist, maybe step closer towards my face. And as he would initiate these cues, the look became even more intense. And that's when I knew this could end badly if I don't get back in line. He knew when he was about to shift, whether he knew where that line was, where if he steps over that line, he could lose control. He was very aware of that. Many occasions we had lots of holes in walls that he ended up repairing over and over again. Holes being punched in walls, doors being punched were not something that only happened every now and again. That wasn't physical violence to me. And that's what I used to rationalise it as. He's punching the wall because he will never hit me. He will never hurt me. This is what the mind does. If there's a reason, if we can rationalise it, that feels safer than the reality of this situation that you're in is life-threatening. I would blame his childhood. I would blame the drink. I would blame work pressure. I would blame his family. I would blame everything other than it being who he was. Because all the other excuses I could seek out solutions for. That felt safer to my brain. Because accepting that he was intentionally harming me, intentionally causing me to be afraid of him, wasn't something that I wanted to accept. Because this was a man who, any other time, claimed to idolize the ground I walked on. So the brain comes in a state of confusion. Not only is it under orders that you never expose what goes on behind closed doors. You don't want anybody to know what goes on behind closed doors. You want them to believe the fairy tale. So this explains why victims don't minimize because nothing happened. They minimize because this has been normalized over time. It's not uncommon for victims to make a report to the police, say they're afraid, and then sit in that statement and minimize certain elements of what's happened. It happens by default. Sometimes influenced by fear of judgment, certainly around things to do with the sexual related matters, sexual coercion, and things like that, and strangulation during intimacy, and that carries shame, particularly if you've not stopped them or said no to certain things. But what many victims don't understand is that where fear exists, consent is not there. Consent cannot exist where fear is present at all. But that doesn't stop them from feeling shame, being fearful of being judged, which causes them to minimize their experience. And because they've reached out to the police and reported certain elements of it and expressed fear and concern for their safety, by minimizing, they're planting a seed that doesn't exist, a faulty seed of uncertainty in the police sometimes, that maybe there's nothing in it. Maybe they're exaggerating. Maybe they're attention seeking. See, the other thing you need to understand is isolation. It is this fear-inducing tactics that often happen so subtly, they can happen even in public. A word, a tone, a subtle look that nobody else would notice. But it sends a strong enough message to their victim: be careful, or when we get home, there's going to be consequences. It could be just something that is said that they're not happy with. It could be talking to somebody that they don't want you to talk to. But the subtle cues are even there in public, but they're so subtle that nobody would ever notice. It only carries meaning to the person who is behind those closed doors with the perpetrator. And that's why self-isolation happens. In my situation, I recall, it happened on a number of occasions, but I went away specifically on 2 short breaks with my one with my mum and dad, and one with my brothers and my dad after my mum had passed away. These were 2 trips that he specifically encouraged me to go on. Specifically encouraged me to go on. He gave me strict instructions not to rack up a phone bill, keeping in touch with him and calling him. He assured me, enjoy yourself. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I obviously said, when we get back to the hotel, when I've got the Wi-Fi and the internet, I will of course call you. And he still insisted not to. I of course did those things. Of course I did. On both of those occasions, there was an issue that caused me to feel unsettled uncertain, and afraid. On one of them, he fabricated a medical emergency that never happened, that never, ever happened, didn't exist. On another one, I was received with a barrage of abusive messages, claiming that I was keeping him away from his speaking to his daughter, our daughter. She was 10 months old at the time. What conversation he thought he was going to have with a 10-month-old, I do not know. But regardless, I told him we were going to be out for the whole day. So knowing I was going to be out for the whole day, those barrage of messages, it started from lunchtime. But when I called him, he didn't answer. Instead, he cut the call off and sent me another barrage of abusive messages. So he encouraged me to go, only to cause disease for me within my nervous system whilst I was away, fear of what I was going to be coming home to. These were not isolated incidences. And that's why I got to the point where I isolated myself. I stopped going places. I stopped going to go and see friends. I stopped going and spending any significant amount of time with family. He even coerced me into giving up my financial independence by dressing it up as being helpful, as being supportive, as the door still being open if I wanted to get back into anything. It wasn't being helpful. It was an expectation. And that soon became very, very apparent when I did do what he said was available and tried to get back into things. So what drives it? What drives that isolation is all those little seeds that have been planted and watered over the years. I knew when I was away in Italy and in Switzerland, I knew that what I was going to come home to was not going to be good. When I landed back at the airport, I messaged him and I said we'd landed safely. The response I got back was, I don't care. Now, bear in mind, I had our daughter with me. I don't care. So I knew straight away that I was not going to be coming into a pleasant environment. I even remember it wasn't long after I'd gone no contact, and I was at a friend's 40th birthday. Kids were playing out in the garden until late. It was a lovely evening. We were all sat outside in the garden, having a nice time. And it got to about 9:30. And I remember I got this sudden sense of dread rush through my system and a sense of panic. When I checked the time, and I thought, I better get home. And actually, I sat there and I thought, oh no, I don't have to get home. We are no contact now. I don't have to. But previously, if I had been home late, if I had not, even though there was nothing that ever suggested that I had to be back by a certain time or he never told me that I couldn't go anywhere. He never told me I couldn't speak to anybody. He never said any of those things directly. But I knew that if I did do X, Y, and Z, that when I got back, I will be walking back into something. And that sudden sense of dread, when I looked at the time, I thought, I better get home. It is hardwired into you. It's hardwired into you. Many a time, even when I was working late at the clinic, I'd be driving home and I get this sudden sense of dread. I knew straight away by that feeling of uncertainty when I'd get that rush of panic through my system when I'd ring him and I wouldn't be able to get a hold of him to let him know I was on my way home, that I was going to walk into something. I knew everything within my whole being knew. And I was right every single time. And that's why you do the isolating yourself, because it's not worth it. See, it becomes part of the coercive control cycle. But a cycle that can turn so fatal so easily. See, in every other time when it's not turned fatal, they've been able to induce the fear, induce uncertainty, water uncertainty, gain compliance, and then paper over, put sticky plasters over the wounds that they've inflicted internally on your heart, in your mind. They put the imaginary plasters onto the wounds that they've inflicted through affectionate words. I love you. It's just a word. I'm sorry. Just a word. They'll dangle the carrot of hope. The term's called future faking. They will talk about things and make promises for the future. They will hook onto something that they know means a lot to you. They don't always intend to cause a loss of life or cause their actions to become fatal. But their actions almost always are designed to intimidate. That is intentional. And where there is a loss of control and where there is alcohol or other substances thrown into the equation that fuels any feelings of anger towards their victim for lack of compliance or humiliation that they feel they've been subjected to. Heightens that risk of fatality. And we see that in these two cases, Simon Vickers and Tony Davenport. Now I'm going to play you the clips of these two gentlemen whose actions resulted in a fatality. In these two particular cases, do I believe that they intended to take the lives of their victims? No. I personally, on a professional, looking at this through a professional lens, I do not believe that that was their intention. But I do believe that their intention was to cause psychological intimidation, cause fear, and to punish. And I think that intention has gone too far, too close to the line, and they've not had the awareness because of the drink and the and potential substances that have been involved in been in their system, that have fueled their anger and their rage and extended out that window of loss of control, that led to the loss of life. And just notice what you hear in both of these cases, and then we'll discuss it afterwards.
I just want to know she's alive. I've not done anything to her. You're right, mate, you've got to help her. I think she's died. I think she's died.
Why have you got blood all over you?
Why have you got blood all over me?
Yeah.
Where?
On your hands.
Please don't tell me she's dead.
Yeah.
Please help me. Please help me.
Okay. We don't know. They're still working on her. They're still working on her.
Working on her. No, this is. I just want to know she's alive. I've not done anything to her.
Okay, Tony.
Yeah.
Listen up to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is she alive?
This is very important. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
The time is 12:39.
Yeah.
You're under arrest on suspicion of murder. Okay. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something you later align in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
I've not done it.
I'm looking about playing in the kitchen. For some reason, this has gone really weird. I mean, I'm looking at the box. I believe this. I don't know what it is. What? Please, someone tell me. What's going on? At the minute, mate, we've got no new information. I'm an evidence as well, so I don't believe it's happening. Look, there's nothing about the kitchen. I don't understand how this happened. Honestly.
So what we saw in those two clips was regret, panic, disbelief, and fear of consequence. Backpedaling, denial, excusing what has taken place. We see it in children when they've done something wrong and they've been caught. It wasn't me, it wasn't me. That's fear of consequence. And it's communicated as we were play fighting. I don't know how it happened. I didn't do anything. What's communicated and what's actually happened are two very different things. Did they mean to take the lives of their victims, as I said? I don't think so. But what they did intend was to intimidate, empower, and punish. And it's gone too far. So there may not be the intent to kill, but there was an intent to intimidate, punish, or induce fear to gain compliance. This will not have been, both of these incidences will not have been isolated one-off incidences. There will be a pattern of control, fear, and consequences for the victim. That coercive control cycle will have been at play for a considerable amount of time. So if you're a professional, the question isn't what happened. It's what patterns are you missing? And if you're experiencing this, that fear you're feeling is not irrational. It's information. The key is learning how to understand it so you can secure safety. Don't try and reason with it. The gut very very rarely lies to you. By not listening to your gut and not listening to that information, it could cost you your life. Or, as if you're a professional, it could cost the person you're supporting, the person who's reaching out to you for help, their life.